there has been some real progress in showing how assisted natural regeneration can provide many benefits. It's becoming better known and better practiced, but I still think it is not being implemented nearly to the extent that it could be. There's still a big emphasis on tree planting, and what we need to do better is sort of target particular groups of landowners and particular scenarios where A&R really stands out as being like the best solution, and demonstrate that using either pilot projects or using it, just beginning to implement, monitoring the effects, and then getting the word out, getting more evidence and showing what can be done in a relatively short period of time with relatively less money. But I think what we need to do first is figure out like what are the best scenarios and apply A&R first in those cases so that we can really make a strong case for it, and then try to apply it more broadly, but with the limitations that it comes with. So again, it's not a solution for everyone or for everywhere. We need to do a better job of targeting the communications and targeting the activities in a better way to make it successful, and then be able to show that success more broadly. Probably the most critical challenge is providing economic benefits for the landowner, so on private farms. This is why I think A&R may have a better potential in more public areas where that is not the major issue. It's hard to compete with other land uses that may be designed that offer a greater economic benefit to a farmer. A&R could provide some benefits, but it would not compete with a commercial crop. So thinking how to then compensate the farmers or the communities that are involved is another big challenge. There are ways to do it, but it needs to be pretty well thought out and not done in a way that later creates a lot of problems with the expectations that everyone's going to be receiving those benefits. We still are living in a situation where the emphasis is still on immediate economic concerns, and it's perfectly understandable that farmers need to have income. But we don't even have any data on how much income they could receive from certain crops grown either within an A&R system or grown sort of in alignment with A&R, like having agroforestry together with A&R or silvopastoral systems. So how can we adapt current agricultural systems and push them more toward A&R is one approach in those cases, not expecting a leap from the current land use to some completely different land use that doesn't have any direct or isn't associated with a direct economic benefit. The carbon market is a potential for this. It is one of the few options for land use that does offer that sort of benefit, but making sure that the farmers are getting paid adequate amount for that is really important. And if they have a very small land holding, it's really not good. Unless the price of carbon really goes up, it's not going to be an advantage. So I think we need to work on that front as well, making sure that the benefits are shared with the communities. There's a lot of activities that people can be trained to do, and that can be part of their family activity or part of a school activity or just part of the women's group or a youth group. So the idea that they develop social activities that are part of the A&R implementation and contribute directly to the management and become directly engaged and learn about, as part of that, they're learning about the forest, they're learning to identify certain species, they're learning to understand their uses. So they're kind of growing together with the forest and how that forest could be managed to provide some other economic benefits. Once they're familiar with it, I think there's that potential and letting them kind of grow with that concept and letting it develop as they are engaged, I think it could yield some really interesting outcomes. The key difference is that the initial costs are much lower. So it is immediately more cost effective because you don't need to go out and raise the funds, especially if you have a community involved that's doing a lot of the labor. You really don't need to have a big budget associated with it, which is also why it can be done as sort of a grassroots activity and not involving a government program or an NGO program. But there are cases like in the Reflorestar program in Espiritu Santo where the farmers did get payments. That can make a big difference. It's only going to cover part of their expenses, but it's like an extra bonus that they could get. And I think thinking more about how we could provide those kinds of incentives is really where we should be moving. Well, I think the more A&R we can do in the right conditions, the more we will learn. So I think it will become kind of self-reinforcing because then people will see, oh my gosh, look what this group did. Let's do that here. So there's that effect of seeing it being successful. They didn't get as much flooding over there where they let their forests regrow, but look, we have really terrible flooding here. Or look, their soils are better and they're producing more agriculture there than we are. So being able to see those direct effects will motivate the behavior of people to get more involved. But again, this is why it's important to focus on doing it in areas where it's going to be successful, because then you will encourage more people to do it with the guidance of what are the best areas to be doing it. Brazil really is the world capital of potential for natural regeneration, and I'm sure that this isn't the agenda, even for the COP that's coming up this fall. It's like not a thing that people really even know in the government, but I think if they could take pride in knowing that, well, because of all the deforestation we've had, we now have a huge opportunity to not just restore, but to restore in a way that really is better for biodiversity and that can also allow us to reach a larger scale. I think these are really important that should be emphasized more.